Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Istio Networking Workgroup meeting. We have a new series of invites, so I hope everybody knows about this. We had issues with that, but now everything looks good. Today we have a special topics around roadmaps for 111 and beyond. I guess it's probably worth discussing a bit the status of 1.0 since we have Josh here. I'm going to put Josh again. Oh, sorry, 1.1. Yeah. I'm going to put you again on the spot, just to give an update.
I mean, really quick one. The second release candidate, which is called RC1, was created yesterday. So anyone who's helping us testing, please repoint your test to that. We still have a list of P0s that we think block the release. And I'm actually trying to complete a bug scrub right now to actually start guessing when we can actually release 1.1, but I don't know right now at the moment.
Okay.
Couple weeks being my guess.
Yeah. So I imagine there were some issues that did not make it in 1.1, and we planned them for 1.1.
Some features.
Yeah, some minor fixes, some
no features. They're called bugs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, some like non-user visible features, we can call them, I guess, that would still go into 1.1, and some bugs as well, right? So how can we go about this? We have a document, we have a spreadsheet with the two priorities. Shall we create a spreadsheet with 1.1 or just list them in the doc?
We can just list them in the doc for now.
Okay. We can use the spreadsheet later, right? So I actually added, I'm not sharing. Let me maybe share my screen. So I already added an item here for the endpoint ingestion via MCP. So that hasn't been yet merged into Gale, and it hasn't been merged into Pilot. So this is the kind of, I don't know, feature.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, let me share. That could go into 1.1. So that's the first one.
Well, 1.1x, let's call it 1.1x.
Yeah, 1.1x.
Whenever it's ready, we'll.
Okay. So I'm talking specifically about this one that I highlight.
And I think this is something that the TOC probably need to be involved with. I think one of the goals for it would be to have kind of more periodic releases of 1.1.x. Since it's clear we want to have bugs or kind of critical features only in 1.1x, we should be able to have maybe bi-weekly or weekly trains that, again, would take some features when they are ready instead of kind of waiting until
if you miss a
targeting them. Yeah, basically a train-based model like a lot of other people are using to kind of diffuse a bit the pressure on big releases and getting untested stuff in.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a fairly large amount of pending bugs, to quote your terminology, for 1.1.
But we should not target them to a release. We should target them to whenever they are ready, they will get into a 1.1x release. I mean, they are acceptable for 1.1 branch, but it doesn't have to go into a particular release. That's why I want to avoid.
Oh, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I see your point.
If we feel, and if they are off by default, again, we minimize the risk and we keep.
Yeah, so
right.
Yeah, in general, anything we can release that is guarded by a feature flag.
Yeah, so I'm going to put here, instead of Istio 1.1.1, we'll call it Istio 1.1x.
Yeah.
All right. And I'll make a note that everything must be protected with a flag. Okay.
If possible. Yeah.
Well, if it is not possible, probably it's not right for 1.1.
Actually, it's not everything, more like every feature, like every big change. Because if you have a very clear, anything risky, if you have a clear bug fix, that is a one-liner bug fix.
I had quite a bit of debates in various reviews where people are saying, oh, this is risk-free because it looks good. And I mean, it's very hard for someone writing code to claim, to believe that they have any risk introduced, because almost everyone believes they're perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
let's start listing the things that we think might go into a 1.1x. Right, so endpoint ingestion via MCP. There are more multi-cluster things to do with Galley, right?
Mhm.
That are pending.
So in general, yeah, it's true that the endpoint ingestion will actually enable like different like multi-cluster cases. So we would need then to really ship that as a feature, right? Not as a feature, like it will have to have solid testing
Yes.
around multi-cluster, which I think we don't have right now. We have like tasks. We have.
So there's
We have a project.
there's two types of testing. There's testing that is as good or better than what we have now, and then there's the testing that we want.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe we'll defer this discussion for the after we discuss the feature. But we definitely put here multi-cluster. And is this do we target multi Kubernetes clusters here in general, or something else? We target anything around VMs?
VMs are stable. We are not planning to change anything right now. I mean, it's there is just support for SDS that came up today, but that's it. Other cluster, I mean, for console, I mentioned I'm working on MCP to console to MCP adapter, but that doesn't have to be, it's more or less independent of the releases.
Yeah, I mean, in general, if there are issues preventing people writing in MCP adapters, we should take them as fixes.
Yes.
The goal of MCP is to enable people to have more integrations into the platform.
Yeah.
So that can be considered in scope for 1.1.x.
Yeah. So, let's put it here. I like this one.
So MCP third-party integration issues.
Yes. No, but I'm saying that it's not necessarily, I mean, one of the goals of MCP is that you can write your own MCP adapters and independently of a release. So basically you can write a console to MCP adapter, release it as an independent ecosystem component, and you're not tied to any kind of release train, and you're not necessarily...
MCP is supposed to be a stable API.
Exactly, MCP is a stable...
something that's preventing people from...
Exactly, that will definitely be fixed, but the different things that we add on top of MCPs are not necessarily, like say ingress support for MCP and all that stuff.
Well, those are Galley features.
Some of them are Galley features, some of them are independent adapters.
So maybe, do we want to count that one in the list, Galley support for Kubernetes ingress resources?
If that's the way we want to go, I mean,
I suspect it is the way we want to go. We want so it can be on the, like we can list it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. Like each of these items is going to get discussed.
Let's say MCP support for ingress, one or another. We need to.
It specifically has to be like for that one. I think it probably is Galley. I guess we could do it the other way.
Yeah,
but then it's an
the important thing is to agree on the feature.
Okay, yeah.
So we agreed that support for Kubernetes ingress is
fixing the Kubernetes
MCP is a feature, right? So we will get later into the details of where and how this is done.
Right. Another big item is export to for specific namespaces. So I guess there's a general bucket of scale things that is still outstanding.
Scale and finishing up all the features that are currently alpha, basically, or are not. Because in Sidecar, we have a few things that are not yet implemented. In export to, this is not implemented. We'll need to look at exactly what.
Yeah, so other, like we need to be precise here, right? Other features. You're saying, Kostin, they have been released as alpha, but they're not in a too good shape? Or
I made the link to the agenda. I actually don't have the calendar.
I don't have it either, so I'm just looking at I was looking for it in...
now I have it.
You have it? Okay.
I didn't have it a minute ago.
All right. So other features that are in alpha. So here we need... so are we going to target anything related to security here? Because that should be the security working groups.
Yeah, no, it's not...
do we care?
There's the one thing there, which is export to.
Export to export to integration
export to with RBAC.
Okay.
With RBAC, moving export onto RBAC.
So that's the sidecar basically. So we want to sidecar CRD. How shall we name this better? Like export to, like move to RBAC. What is this?
No,
it's not move to. It's enforce.
Integrate export to with RBAC.
Okay. Okay.
I would use the word enforce.
Enforce export to. Okay, yeah, that's proper.
Okay.
Enforce, yeah, because.
Okay, I can. So these are.
Are back. Okay. So.
What else is missing?
So, quick question: So I know Sergey's typing this out, but he's probably a little slow typing. I know he's working on IPv6. Is that going to be a 1.1.1 thing or 1.2 or?
Oh, 1.1.1. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, he may not be ready by then. He'll have to speak for himself, but.
We just had another report of, so the problem is that some clusters somehow get IPv6 addresses for whatever reasons, including VMs. And that creates problems with, I mean, not necessarily to get IPv6 working, but not to crash if you have an IPv6 address.
Right, that's, yeah.
Oh,
that's
okay,
totally
so it's a different thing than supporting IPv6.
And if someone happens to fix IP tables to support IPv6, I don't think we're going to say no.
Crash.
That's what I'm working on.
1.1.
That's what I'm working on right now on the IPv6 tables fixing, because I mean it's not straightforward. It's not the same way as IPv4. There are major differences in behavior.
Right. So that's just the IP tables stuff, right?
No, there are bugs. I mean, after we disable IP tables, there are kind of bugs that leaked into the code. So readiness check doesn't have the proper columns, whatever. It's not properly formatting. So we had it working at some point. Gosh. Then kind of we got regression in different places, and he's fixing it. And some of them actually have been reviewed for 1.1. I'm not entirely sure why would we not fix it. It was working, got broken, we fix it again. It's not a new feature. It's something that worked before.
I guess my question is this: IPv6 is a pretty big feature. Is that a 1.2 thing, or is that a 1.1z stream? Or
thanks for asking that, Steve.
Yeah, I don't think that should be a 1.2 thing, just because of the release qualification that would have to go on.
Right, but here we're talking just about the bugs,
dev
right?
quality, but
dev quality,
which means like it has literally not been tested by anybody in a serious way.
My point was that it's a regression. I mean, we had it working in 0.8, and then it broke, and we didn't fix it. It's not a new feature; it's an old feature that we are just fixing back. Anyway, let's.
If we haven't qualified it, it doesn't exist.
So we talk about two different things here. One thing is what Kosin is talking about is if the interface happens to have an IPv6, it crashes.
Right, that's clear.
Yeah.
That's clear. But the actual thing of supporting IPv6 addresses with
for instance,
Istio,
making IP tables work with IPv6, et cetera, right, that is bigger.
That's a big thing. There were a bunch of like GitHub issues opened, and they're still open.
But
unless they were marked.
So there's probably a line which I don't see between that, but there are cases where you have a VM that is serving IPv6 addresses or white box, which doesn't require IP table. IP table, I agree. I'm also a bit scared about it, but
yes. So
like there are things that probably would work, like particularly white box.
White box should work.
But for us to say that it's anyway supported, right, is asking for trouble.
I guess
it won't work. White box will not work, because the redirection to the pilot doesn't work. So basically, I mean, like without pilot or without a sidecar proxy, you have IPv6 connectivity. But I mean, what Istio then has to do with this? So as soon as you start trying to redirect the IPv6 traffic to the sidecar proxy, you start seeing problems, and that's what I'm experiencing right now.
That's why we say white box would work, because it has no implicit redirect.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, you're right.
I guess the more meta question I have is we're listing off a bunch of features and we're saying, okay, they're going to be in the 1.1z stream. Should we do that now or should we do that later? Should we just?
I would seriously question whether we want all these in 1.1x.
Yeah,
this looks like a great list for 1.2. Frankly.
Yeah, I have the same concern. It's like we're repeating everything we did in 1.0.
Thank you, guys.
The X.
Well, just to be clear, nothing we've listed so far is anything other than stabilization of existing features.
But it's still a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
But it's like in
no one is saying that all of this goes into 1.1.1.
We'll prioritize it in another pass.
This list still gets prioritized.
Okay. That's 1.1x, right?
And one meta question here is what is the schedule? I mean, if 1.1.x is going to go for 6 months like 1.0, why not? I mean, it's. I mean, if we can have periodic releases that are of good quality.
So two things. One, all of these features will be in have to go in some release.
Yes.
I'll make Josh happy. Some of them are fairly high priority, like the scale stuff.
Yeah, I know. So we're also having other questions that are more in the build, test, and release track about taking some time to really build out some of our
infrastructure. We're just doing one topic at a time.
I'm just part of me is reacting to this emotionally because I'm afraid that we're not going to put in the time on the build, test, and release side to slam up work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
We have like the
general
testing
it's down there,
strategy
yeah.
or bullet.
But there are no features here. I mean,
Mhm.
again,
Or
Since we
big
ship-
bug fixes, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
So let me
Locality
make a
load
suggestion.
balancing.
Let me make a suggestion. Instead of saying these are all going to be 11Z, we could just say, here's a list of stuff we need to add. And then we
At
can
some point,
prioritize it
yes.
separately. Yeah.
Well, there are some things that we specifically shouldn't be doing in 1.1.
Okay. That's fair. But what I'm saying is break the two pieces of work apart. So here's the new features or bug fixes or whatever. And then here's where we're prioritizing them in the releases cycle.
Sure. I was just trying to get feedback around where we think some of these things would fit or could fit.
Okay.
Right. Because when somebody submits a PR, they need to know against which branch, right?
okay,
Hopefully less so on that subject, but that's probably more a discussion for testing strategy.
how about adding perf and end-to-end tests, since Josh mentioned this, to all the existing features?
Right, so we have the testing strategies section.
That's how you, yeah, okay, so that.
I'm happy to talk about these things in any order people want,
Yeah, so
but they all need to get covered.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
talk a bit about like some specific bug fixes and then we move on to the testing. Okay. So with locality load balancing, I think
Yeah,
that
that's
like
something that
Liam, the code is in, but it needs again, like it needs stabilization, it needs testing, right? So
There's no doc for that, right? I don't think people will be
no,
able
there
to
is.
Little
I
bit.
believe Liam created one and shared it.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, it's still.io.
Oh, no, there isn't
Yeah.
that. No, I need to create one for that.
Yes, so maybe I should bring up a thing related to usability. So I'm seeing all kinds of comments on the internet that we can do better with our usability. And that includes actually writing better documentation or more documentation. Like, I don't think we can ever have enough, right? So if we release a feature, even if we cannot do it initially, let's target to adding those docs as soon as possible, right? Writing some blogs about it, whatever works for people. But
Regarding the documentation, one thing that I noticed over the last few weeks is basically we keep documentation
Closer to the mic.
Closer to the mic.
For people outside.
So I thought Mike's here pretty good, but yeah, maybe I'm wrong. So basically, we keep documentation separate from the main repo, which is just basically discourages people, of keeping docs along with their PRs. Like one practice that usually works very well, docs are in the main repo and generated from there. Then whoever is putting a feature request, they have to have updated documentation in there. So maybe
we had this discussion, right? And the reality is we wanted to move with a higher velocity for the code and not necessarily enforce the documentation in the same time, right? But that doesn't mean we want to ignore it completely.
So I think we're kind of getting a little bit off the main thing here. So I think we have I think in this working group, we need to focus on the networking features. I do think some sort of disclaimer along the lines of we have some usability and some testing concerns that may have to take priority. We may have to do first before a lot of these things. But for now, we should just focus.
Right.
All right, so let me give a little context. If we don't want to talk about, I don't care which order we talk about these things. If we want to talk about testing, now we can. And we have the UX working group, which was established by the TOC, which will focus on docs and install and release and upgrade and those types of things. And so we should try to stay reasonably focused in this meeting, but it's certainly a relevant subject.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the previous two TOC meetings, we talked about how to improve our test posture and what the requirements are going to be around testing. Now, the hope is that we will have some new testing infrastructure and some better CI infrastructure available so that it's easier and more efficient to write tests. And then we will start looking at test coverage and test plans for major feature areas and be a little bit more purposeful about how we do that and look at identifying major testing gaps.
And we just need to make sure that we don't let feature requests or large bug fixes crowd out this investment in our infrastructure.
Right. Yeah. So the expectation is, we will switch to an elevated level of testing and reliability with a better CI process and hopefully better tooling to do it. And then, we would start to see features be gated on meeting that test bar. Now we can't do that because that infrastructure doesn't exist yet, but the plan is to make that switch. And ideally sometime before the 1.2 release.
Yes, like I would like to start as soon as we release 1.1.
Right. So that means that it's going to require a sizable investment from everybody to start engaging with that practice. And what might that practice look like? Right. One of the things that we did a lot of in 1.1 was making sure that there were well-defined APIs between every component. What that implies, though, is that for every feature, your feature is tested at every layer of the API dependency tree. Right? There's a test for your feature testing the propagation of your API through Galley. There's a test for that feature propagating out to XCS. And there's an end-to-end test testing the behavior of that networking feature in the actual networking stack itself, at a minimum.
And that we have.
In addition to unit tests.
Yeah. So those components, the frameworks are more or less in place.
They're sort of.
The one that is.
The one that I've seen, it doesn't look very well standardized. So there's going to be some issues there. And so we need to write best practices for people, and we need the leads to set the standards.
Yeah, like a couple of observations is again, just a person who recently joined. Tests are broken, they are flaky, nobody cares. We still merge PRs through them.
We care, and we hold our noses every time we have to do
right
that.
now there are two tests, which one never was successful, and it's still part of required checks, and another one that succeeds in 20% of time.
So this is what we need to focus on.
That's what you're saying.
Another thing, ideally, if there is a feature, let's say I'm looking right now at multi-cluster plus gateways feature. So ideally, I would like to have a script which I just run, and it gets to set up in one of clouds of choice, ideally with switchable backends. Something I started looking in, but
that's what the new testing infrastructure that I was talking about is designed to help you with.
Okay, so ideally, we shouldn't if we have some manual, some tutorial or demo, there should be just a script, just a step that I can just run and get exactly same steps spinned up.
Right. So there's two parts to that, right? One, we want to get the tests to be as stable as possible with as much automation as possible in a way that's maintainable, so we can enforce the testing standard. And then two, how applicable are those tests to many environments? Right. Anytime you have a cross-product explosion of the tested environment, right, particularly in pre-submit, you're going to cause yourself flakiness. Right? That has historically been our experience. So we have to find some balance between pre and post-submit for that. And that's going to be one of the things. And we want as much as possible to be in pre-submit, which means it has to be as local, hermetic, and as fast as possible.
Which is a bit conflicting. Fast and everything.
Well, he's as possible.
Or as possible.
So there is a trade-off.
But it's much better to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get a result from your local machine.
Or an hour, frankly.
Than to wait 3 hours, right, for the CI system because it's overloaded because everybody's trying to submit on a Thursday evening.
No, but
anyway, I don't want to get into too much in the weeds because the investment has been going on in this area, but it's not integrated into the development practice, and the way it gets integrated into the development practice is by the leads sponsoring it.
But I have 2 points to make here when very related. One of the reasons, people do care, but the problem is that the current infrastructure, it's very hard to debug. You cannot reproduce it. If you cannot reproduce it, you just looking at the log, it's very hard to fix one of the tests. On Prow, you cannot SSH. On Circle, you can SSH, but that's complicated. So the new testing framework will solve the problem on one side because you do it everything local, you can reproduce it. And the other test that you mentioned where you run a script, you create a reproducible cluster with all the tests, it's another way to fix it. But
so this framework, I heard a lot about it. I would love to learn more. But is it really the right approach to invest a lot of resources into getting something set up that doesn't quite exactly correspond to real production use cases, or we can simply use existing clouds, and
so yes,
spin up
the answer is very much yes. This has been something that we've done a lot of digging into and looked at development practice. If you want to test locally, Docker is an impediment to debugging. Running Kubernetes is an impediment, and 90% of features don't require the environment to be tested.
And having a debugger attached is priceless. I mean, from terms of productivity, reproducing stuff.
That's not, so there's the boundary between pre and post submit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just saying we shouldn't underestimate the value of like those post submit tests. If this doesn't look a merge, it doesn't mean it's like.
I do think we need to get back on track.
Okay,
Right, so-
sorry.
so
Is
there's
there
that.
still a test and release group?
Yes,
there is.
Okay, because that's like we need to get guidance.
Right, so
The test
Josh
and
is
release
now
group.
one of the working group leads for build, test, and
Okay.
release.
Yeah.
And we have new people working on CI who are going to help us with this transition. But it's not ready to go yet.
Okay.
And so we can't ask people to change until it's not fair to ask people to change their development patterns without giving them support.
Right. So
One of the reasons why we're talking about things going into 1.1 as opposed to 1.2 is to, at least in 1.1, require an elevated level of quality and caution on people's behalf if there's no infrastructural support to enforce it yet.
Thank you.
I have a slight disagreement here. I mean, we do have a framework in place. I mean, so Perfront has been running since 08. It was quite successful. It's not fully automated. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And quite a few people managed to get it working, to add tests to it. I mean, I think it's not such, and I think having people.
It's not ubiquitous across the project.
My impression
It's not consistently documented.
I know.
It's not established development practice.
and few people understand how to interpret the results.
And that's a part where, but again, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
So
At least 5 people who understand how
so
it works.
just view this as an evolution of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But people can start already. I mean, if we get
Yeah.
people to start using, more people to use it and to document and so forth, it will kind of evolve to the
That might be a
direction.
nice, it's like a bridge loan that might get us over the hump and let us get some of these features in while we wait for
And
the
if
better
we-
thing to arrive.
So let me finish just this idea.
Yeah.
So if we require for those features to add something to the existing framework, since they will be very similar, I think we both get people to use, get used to the idea, and we increase
How much
the bar.
documentation is there for it?
They managed to get it working with the documentation that exists, no?
Yeah, there's not a lot.
But in
We're working on
terms of
making it
interpreting the
more.
mess of counters and understanding when
The
things are
reason why
good.
we were able
about
to
that?
get it working is because there's basically, it's pretty straightforward. There's not much stuff in there. It's just a large cluster, which people are using in a semi-automated fashion.
Do you guys know enough now to actually do the tutorial?
I just want to be clear. I'm not talking about the performance and scale test driver.
Oh, that's what I was.
And it's not that.
That's what we're talking about.
No, I know. I'm talking about a different type of test driver. Right, one which is designed, right, that is not designed to be run locally. It's not hermetic.
No.
Yeah, I can.
So
Okay, so anyway, I want to hear from folks who are not Googlers.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
So I've been waiting for people to give me a break to talk.
Yeah, sorry, we're stomping on you.
Let's go. I personally think everybody in this project that develops software for this project should understand how the checks and gates work. Even if it's hard, it's the hardest part of software, in my opinion, is get understanding the test infrastructure, but it's worth the investment. I think if we can figure out how to do that, that would be beneficial. I don't have any immediate answers. For me, I just experienced it over and over and over and got so frustrated with the bugs, with the gate crashing, that I fixed specific bugs. And if other people do that, that works out, but not everybody's going to do that. So maybe if the TOC can come up with some technique to encourage folks to learn how the gate works, that might be advantageous.
So
overall.
So I'm trying to kind of bridge what you just said and what Costin said. And one possibility, this is a straw man, is that we view this as an optimization problem. We have tools right now that unfortunately not enough people know how to use, but they do work and they do give us some, if you know how to interpret them, they actually do testings relatively well. We start requiring that now. And then we, in parallel, build tools to make this easier and require less expertise.
Yeah, so what's missing is actually educating people about these tools.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I keep hearing Costin and Amanda talking about this like performance and scale test bed, but I have no idea how I could,
the immediate action
how I could
is
try
let's get a
something
tutorial.
like that.
Let's-
I mean, what would be
Okay.
beneficial is a demo of the thing, like here is what you should do. Like, we have it, people are there, like we record it, we post it on YouTube.
So let's talk, because currently the scale testing, the scaled out test that we have, the complaint that I've heard is no one else can do it except Google.
So let's start training. But let's set up the
Before we
sessions.
train, do we understand like what it is? What are we training? Because we're calling it like
Right,
perf
well,
testing cluster.
Right now, we just need the leads.
Yeah.
Or the people who contribute regularly in this ecosystem to understand it and to see if they can apply it in their context.
Yeah, because right now, just from it looks like there's like some disconnect between like automated testing at like pre and post build and the perf testing cluster, which is a completely different thing. Maybe there is some connection, but
It's becoming the
Yeah.
post to meet, or it's one of the post to meet gates that's
Yeah.
going to be.
So we need multiple levels of testing, right? Like what Louis was
yeah.
talking
But-
about.
They have to yield.
Sorry.
Well, sorry, Andrew hasn't had a chance to talk. Why don't we let
Yeah,
Andrew finish?
so,
Yeah, Andrew, go ahead,
uh,
please. I didn't.
What Louis was talking about with the hermetic running on the local machine, that's for pre-submit.
Yes.
What Costin is talking about is really like qualification post-submit, right? So we need all levels of testing.
Let's yield to online.
Steve?
I guess my only complaint about when I was learning how to do that work, the gate work, is there is no onboarding documentation at all anywhere in our repo or at all of how to do development in those in the test directory or in the proud directory. I mean, you really have to read the code and understand how it works to be able to work on the gate. And I think if we can do some onboarding docs, that might help.
Yeah.
But
we should write a testing guide
Yeah,
for each
There you go.
component.
okay. Sounds good.
Sorry, do you mind making a note?
Hmm?
Like, there should be a testing guide.
Yeah.
A
That would
testing guide,
basically,
yeah,
for each
sure.
component that says here's
How to.
how
Yeah.
to test.
Yeah, let me put that testing guide.
And I want it actually by component because I want each working
Yeah,
group
and
to
then-
own it.
And in PRs, we can actually say, show us that you actually did this.
Yeah.
Code reviews, I mean.
yeah, no, I think like one important thing here would be even if the person doesn't know how to test, we still should be able to get this feedback, this broken build or some
Yeah.
report if they did something wrong. Because if people don't bother to learn how to perform the semi-manual, semi-automated,
The thing,
testing,
the concern I raised earlier about not understanding how to interpret the counters, one way we could do that is actually have people include the counters in the PRs. And we can look at that side.
Absolutely,
That's both
like
evidence that
those
they did the test and we can actually take a look.
yeah, like
Too
KPIs and
onerous?
constraints.
No, I'm fine with giving people test cookies.
Yeah.
So they've shown, right, I mean, the goal for anything local, pre-submit, right, you should be able to run pre-submit locally. The amount of infrastructure the amount of setup you need to do to run pre-submit, right, ideally would be go test or make test. Right, that should be the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
It might be hard to achieve. And one of the issues we have is doing that component by component too, right? What pilot needs to test is different from what Envoy proxy needs to test, right? So that's one of the reasons to look at componentization.
Mhm.
But in principle, that should be what we're looking for.
Right, but I don't like the fact that there is so much manual thing where somebody needs to prove in the PR
That's-
manual attached
That's
thing.
incentive to
So-
build out the automation.
Well, I mean, we should not even like envision something without automation, right? So as a developer,
I would
I
rather
want us
have
to
manually
make-
tested features than
Nothing.
untested features.
Yeah. Tested is
Yeah.
unacceptable.
Sure, but maybe the question is how do we get the automation that we
Sure.
need? Because
Right, no, that-
it's-
we gotta do that
manual
in
is
parallel.
not scalable.
Yes,
It's
totally
not
agree.
scalable, it's not repeatable,
Well,
it's
no
not
testing is
automation.
scalable, but is not acceptable, so.
Right, but so maybe here is the priority to actually build like automated tests for this.
Yes,
So that's
like-
what we've been talking
totally
about.
agree.
But until we have the automated test, we cannot ship without testing.
Yes, agreed.
So maybe we should stop shipping and build those.
Yes, well, or the compromise is we keep shipping, but you better qualify manually. And in parallel, we build up the automation.
It would be nice to say that
Yeah.
1.1 is the last major release that required so much manual qualification.
Mm.
Now, do I think we'll be able to pivot in the 1.2 timeframe, whatever that is?
Yeah.
That's hard. But should it be a lot better? Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
I think there are easy wins there, and I completely agree. If there is no automated test that we can trust, the feature should be considered broken, and that's it. It's like no manual testing. It's like you see, right now we're basically walking through a bunch of like features that were implemented quite some time ago, and now we're asking, does this feature even work now? Does like Kubernetes ingress work? Does like this multi-cluster
Yes.
gateway still works? And we don't know. So
Yes.
we should assume, as long as there is no test that we can trust, it's broken.
Well,
Yeah.
and we have a spreadsheet with a step of manual tests that we perform, and each release so far we have performed the test, and we know that when we ship it works. Yes, it's manual because we didn't have time to automate, and only very few people actually got involved into this. If we increase the number of people who work on this kind of testing, they will have time to actually automate it, because it's just basically what John is doing with adding some Prometheus scripts that are not so hard to add. It's just that, again, we had time pressure and we had extremely just two people basically doing this.
Right. So that's why I think we have to dial back a bit on the features and focus on that. Because for me, the manual thing is not a solution. I mean, we cannot continue like that. I love that Istio testing there. I love to run manually through this. Like doing manual stuff allows you to learn, to understand better things and all that, but it's not a release qualification criteria.
So other concrete suggestions?
Yeah, I have a concrete suggestion. It's pretty low-hanging fruit. The way we should, just my opinion. Of course, I have very limited scope of what I've seen, but I think the perf cluster was this one long-lived cluster where we deploy everything. Definitely helps with some use cases, but overall, I didn't see it's a long-term story for this kind of testing, because it's very easy. There are 20 pull requests outstanding, all on their own code bases. How can we run in parallel 20 test suits, basically, right? We have one shared cluster. So it definitely helps.
It's supposed to meet test, not it's a daily test that is happening every night with the nightly build. It's not supposed to be a pre-submit. It's a pre-submit.
Yeah, but what if I want to take my time and actually run verification? All scenarios that are available, and there's one very naive, simple, stupid way to get it done. That's what I'm doing while testing all those scenarios. Just run a script that on demand you run it, it spins up a new cluster, deploys the given version of Istio and attack, runs a bunch of checks, and tears it down. We can run.
That's essentially what the Hermetic system would do.
Yeah.
At a small scale.
Yeah,
but that's what Cloud
you're
does.
doing it locally, right?
Locally.
Yeah.
And you can do it on a cluster.
No, but he's talking about spinning a cluster.
So
that's what Cloud does. That's what our
hold on,
entrance
just to be clear.
does.
There's nothing that says that a Kubernetes cluster running locally is less featureful than a Kubernetes cluster running in the cloud.
Well, if you want to test, let's say, multi-cluster with gateway, I can spin up.
You want to run multiple?
Hold on, guys.
Let's move it to the
Guys, we have to be aware that when we talk in a tight huddle, that no one else online can actually interject.
Yeah.
So we do have to occasionally pause and let somebody else contribute to this conversation. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so
I just want to specifically answer that one question.
Yeah.
We have tested that scenario in the local Hermetic thing.
TLS certificate issue.
Multi-cluster and gateway.
Yeah, let's say I want to get.
Okay, no,
TLS.
I just want to say that the point is the Hermetic testing, the local testing should be able to test 90+% of the features.
Yeah.
Multi-cluster clearly falls within that bucket.
Yeah.
As does TLS and anything of that kind. So we should be able to run locally as pre-submit. If we cannot run it locally as pre-submit, right, we have a real problem with the feature and the development cycle. So we need to define boundaries about what should and should not be in pre-submit versus post-submit, but any mainstream feature should run in pre-submit. Things that we'd like to see in post-submit are durability testing, burn-in testing, scale testing.
For all features.
Right, for all features, or at least mainline features, right? It might not be possible.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with that. I'm
Okay.
talking about what
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
So can somebody volunteer to actually write down what should be pre-submit, what should be post-submit?
So that is on the TOC.
TOC,
and me
okay.
right now.
TOC Louis will define this. So just to
Well, actually,
we get that, and then we see how we actually get to that point.
so
how we build
the
on
truth
that,
is
right?
this is actually on the TOC and the working group leads. Right,
Okay.
we can't actually do this. I can't actually do this without getting the leads or the major contributors involved in this process and actually kicking the tires, getting used to it, and becoming net promoters for it.
Okay.
So my expectation, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to specific people in each of the major component areas and ask them to write tests of critical kind of structural use cases that then other people can build upon.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will evaluate. So I don't want to just say we're going to do it and then find out it doesn't work. Like we're going to have to go do this. It's going to take some effort, and then we're going to evaluate and see if we need to course correct or not. But that's the goal.
Okay, but this has a dependency on the actual new framework being ready
Yes,
for
it
that.
does.
Okay.
We
However,
can't keep doing what we've been doing for Medic because we don't.
right. However, the list is not dependent on anything. So assuming we get the post-submit list, work can proceed with the post-submit test cases on the production cluster, automating those.
So we
right?
can keep adding post-submit. We still need to look at enabling organizations to run the equivalent post-submit.
And
It's not as high priority, it's not blocking, but we should at least be
I
cognizant.
believe it's already done.
They don't believe it's done.
They don't know it's
Okay.
done, but it is.
We have
done.
class.
So Costin's going to take an AI
Yeah.
to document that for people.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, I think there's a
Can I-
dependency as well on the fact that there's like no documentation on
Can I present quickly?
how
Andra?
this works.
If it's quickly, yes.
It's very
And
quick.
while you start presenting, I want to actually hear maybe from some more people on the line because, sorry, we are really taking over the stage here.
Well, I guess, does anybody disagree with the philosophy of spending more time on testing and holding up features? Right, that the fundamental issue at hand.
Yeah, no disagreement. And I completely agree. We need to see more testing and the documentation, how to do the testing. I have to confess, a lot of tests I don't know how to run locally. There's only a very small handful of tests I know how to run locally, which is, it's very hard to troubleshooting today.
So I just want to present, I mean, what is highlighted there is basically, that's the only command that someone would need to do to run in a different cluster. Ignore the line above about creating a JKE cluster, create any cluster you want, and that's the command you need. It's one command that will set up the infrastructure.
So
to
this
run
is
the-
a sneak peek on the how-to.
Yeah, I mean, it has been
Software
documented.
how-to.
Yeah, it's in this directory. It's again seems to be working. We tested that it works, and I don't have access to other clusters than JKE, but
Right,
if
that's the
someone
primary
can-
complaint I heard was that people couldn't afford to run clusters that big.
Oh, no, it's 4 nodes. It's not a big
Okay,
cluster.
that's
This is a 4-node cluster. I mean, I'm not suggesting people run the 1000.
I think if you run the script, it will take a lot more than 4 nodes.
6. Oh well, CPUs. It's,
What-
I think
what-
it's
how
about.
many-
Well, yeah, it's-
Okay,
Starting
if it's
with
less than
CPUs.
10, I don't care.
Yeah,
Even if it's less than
yeah.
20 of them.
Like last thing that I tried, it requires at least 64 cores to run this. Maybe it's.
We can tune it. I mean, if that's a problem, we can find a number that is acceptable and then we can tune it.
I was also thinking we could have, like a heavy values and a light values that you can specify.
And we can
I
default
want
to
to run
that,
on a
but-
huge cluster. Or run
And
Okay,
then,
well, let's take it offline.
so-
but-
Yeah,
but
anyway,
the
that's
how-
what I wanted to
the
do.
how-to should
Add the
also
link.
say, how do you know when the test actually passed? What do you do when it doesn't pass? Yeah.
Costin, please add the link in here to what you just showed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just so everybody understands, we are working to get this automated and included and the results from this to be more transparent in the nightly run reports, right?
Yep.
That's what Maria is working on, among other things.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Can we give some swags to people who make presentations about tests and write tests?
Sure. So we have one
We'll
of
merge their PRs. How about that?
we may have murdered tests. We still have 1.2 to talk about. I have
Yeah.
to talk about it because,
Okay, so we move to the next topic, 1.2 priorities.
right, so let's assume that we are investing a large proportion of the aggregate engineering effort in testing and release quality over the course of the next thing. And we would like the 1.2 release to not take as long as the 1.1 release. What pragmatically might we want to include as new features in 1.2?
May I ask a quick question, like again, just like, what is our release cycle? Why do we
There's
release?
nominally 3 months, because that would align
we-
with
we carry
LTS
it.
support windows, where we would carry basically LTS support for 2 trailing releases.
Okay,
So it's currently what it is. It's not clear that that's working.
So we target like a time window, basically rolling releases as much as we could get done to a certain level of quality, release every 3 months and provide support for the last few
Right. So
releases.
But it never worked.
right. So one of the suggestions now is, if we can get to the point where testing is good enough, then in theory you could have a release on green intelligent, right? And then the question is, well, what actual cadence would you want to do that on? Monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly?
Can
Weekly.
we actually discuss priority of features and worry about cadence?
Yes,
separately? Because again, this is not the test.
So I'm going to put a stake in the ground, and let's
Yeah.
for sake of argument say that 1.2 ships 2 months after 1.1. As a hypothetical, what features would reasonably be considered for inclusion in such a release?
Or like, what are the high priority features in order? And then we will see what gets included or not, depending on when they are ready, right? We don't have to delay the release.
How about an
for all the
extreme approach saying 0 features in 1.2? Let's just have a 1.2 release with.
So remember, there are other working groups that may have features. Like we might have a better installer. So there might be no new it's reasonable to say there are no new networking features.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
Oh, you could promote some of the alpha feature to beta from a
Exactly.
network
Exactly. So
perspective.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, stuff that's currently guarded by a feature flag.
So
Well, how about promoting the APIs from alpha to beta?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is a feature.
Well,
No, it is, because we know it requires work to be done.
no. So when I said 0, I said 0 new features except, kind of what we already have and stabilizing what we have and what we listed as 1.1.x bug fixes.
Well,
Okay.
let's assume that the default is nothing.
Yep.
But there are candidate other features outstanding that we should at least be cognizant of. I'd like people to list them out.
Yeah.
Right. So Sergey already listed the IPv6, which we talked about in the
Okay.
beginning of the meeting, right? And
About CNI on by default,
I treat it as a feature, existing feature moving to beta.
but on by default.
Do we have, are enough people comfortable debugging it when it doesn't work?
Given that nobody has tried to.
no, so
Well, okay, the plurality of the project has not tried.
Yeah.
right. So before enabling that on by default, we need to be comfortable with it. So we need to have like.
I'm not trying to list out the criteria that
Mhm.
would gate such a feature. I'm just trying to list the features.
Right, and that
is a
means
candidate.
being included.
It's a candidate.
But that means also being included in the automated tests.
Yes.
Okay.
Funny thing it is, we have a proud
It is?
test
Okay.
for CNI. I
So
don't know if it's still broken, but
Yeah, that we tend to ignore. Yeah.
how about
Yeah, on the testing, the CNI, I've just fixed the CNI repo side to test against everything's passing now with 1.1 and master.
perfect.
The proud job, John was looking at that. I don't know if he posted a PR for that or not, but we had some problems with getting our test and release stuff actually tagging a container and pushing it to the release location. So I think that was the blocker there for him.
Thank you for that.
how about not strictly features per custom, the user-facing feature side, well, they have user-facing impact, eliminating the requirement of container port.
Bug fix.
It's
Regression.
user-facing. It was a regression.
It is a regression.
Right, but it's still meaningful work that has to be organized and scheduled for, and we would put in release notes and go and talk to customers. So it's still a feature.
Yeah.
Another one would be eliminating the requirement for port annotation for protocols in some cases.
Yeah.
Right. None of these require API changes nominally, but they do have large user visible and usability impact.
But I mean, what I was saying earlier that there are maybe bug fixes that we can do in 1.1x.
So some of those
ship when it's ready. So basically, it's a priority. Both of them are priority. We should have people working on them, and when they are ready, it doesn't matter what it's called.
I understand we have release vehicle decisions to make.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get candidate lists. We can move things around.
That's clearly a candidate. I think we should.
Sorry, I missed this one. Which was the one we were talking about?
Right now in Kubernetes, to know the protocol of any service, you have to name the port, which is basically means that every Kubernetes cluster needs a lot of config.
Yeah, I think the eliminating container port was for 1.1.x schedule in the last discussion.
Yeah, if it makes sense, I'm just throwing some stuff out there.
Yeah, let me throw something out. So Envoy has some like deprecation policy, which has been moved now from 3 months to 6 months.
And they're about a year. And they're talking about.
Yeah, but we still have to make at some point the change to use filter chains in the listener that like perceived as high risk since it affects the listener. I'm not sure like about the amount of effort, but it should definitely go in one too.
We just found an owner for it. I want to give them some time to ramp up before we say it'll be ready by this time.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay,
kind of-
but can we
it's a
list it
candidate.
here and in
Yes,
the
no, we
right
should list it.
filter chain?
And the elimination of requirement for list for container port is actually the first part of this change.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
they're related work.
So the container port, I have a question.
Yes.
So the container port, are you talking about the deployment YAML?
Yes, in deployment, you currently require that all the ports are listed in container port in deployment so we can intercept them.
So by default, Kubernetes does not require that. So some people have deployments where they did not list their container ports and they try to move to Istio and they don't know why it doesn't work.
In fact, it's
Yeah.
the most common case that people don't declare the container
Yeah.
ports.
Well,
Yeah, so we added that requirement to fix a security problem. So we cannot just remove it without fixing the deep underlying way the listeners work, or the way, not the listeners work, the way we configure listeners.
Another-
Okay, so that's a common thing people do. Okay, I got you.
yeah, but we don't have any good way to fix it right now except using the filters.
Yes. So that, those are related. Another usability challenge for people right now is VIP creation when multi-cluster is enabled in non-homogeneous deployments.
And DNS in general.
Right. So yeah, all that kind of class of DNS problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, are you looking at the list of like basically outstanding issues?
No, we're just coming off the top
So
of our heads.
What is like generally the process of like deciding on feature? Would it make sense to really just maintain our like backlog, triage issues, and just order them in terms of like triggering?
So we will go back what Josh has been doing and in the build
So
test
it
and
happens
release.
offline.
Yeah, we have been doing in other meetings going and triaging backlogs. We've obviously been very focused on 1.1. Anything that was a P0 that got kicked out of 1.1 would in theory be a candidate.
Yeah.
Right. So these are just really additional
Yeah,
things.
it's like, I mean, some like very naive practices. You maintain this backlog, you just order things, try to estimate issues in capital line. If it sleeps, then naturally like gets to the next iteration.
I think you're championing the bit to participate in the build test and release working group. What are you doing?
No, I understand. Like the reality is like way more complicated.
Right. So for the sidecar CRDs, are all, like we have the API, but is it like fully implemented? So do we need like to add this as part of 1.2, whatever it's missing?
Some of that is 1.1.
Some of what, like is there, what is left or?
We'll determine. I don't know how to.
Okay.
There are a backlog of like the export to not supporting explicit namespaces, right? Is an example of a thing that's in the APIs that's not implemented.
Right. We also had the destination role. Like we had some discussions around that, like about how do we target that for 1.2 or we.
It should be a candidate. I don't know if we can target it.
Okay, let me put it here, just in case so we don't forget.
It's a candidate.
Does anybody else want to propose any other candidates for 1.2?
Because the list we have here is definitely not 2 months.
Yeah,
3 months.
That list is not all going to happen.
Yeah.
Already. That's okay. It's a candidate list. That's fine. And you know, if we're all, this is not a discussion of staffing right now. But features that are posing either, if we focus on 1.2's themes being, let's resolve usability issues with the features that we already have, right? Which is kind of what's showing up in that list, frankly, and is aligned with what the TFC was saying. And are there other things that kind of fall into that general bucket, right? Just not new features, but a better experience with the features that we have.
I put one of the on the list, adding the full sidecar to CNI because that's kind of 1.2 clearly. If it happens. So the CNI is right now just replacing the IP table interception, but we also want to be able to intercept, to replace the container.
Oh, the proxy management via CNI.
Yes, replacing auto
Okay,
with CNI.
I hope that's not 111.
1.2.
So it's a candidate for 1.2.
Yeah.
It's not a trivial feature. But
It's not a trivial feature, but and it's happening in the CNI repository, which has a different release cycle.
CNI. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, we're running out of time and we haven't heard enough from the people on the line.
I wonder why.
Well, we are out of time. What I would suggest people do is just add stuff in that section in the doc, and we'll pick it up next time around. We want to accelerate the next meeting.
Yeah, we can have one next week. Like if people are available, I guess at 10, because at 11 is the general Istio community. I think we've done this in the
How about
past.
ship 1.1 and then we can have a meeting? Let's not, until we ship 1.1, since we have some regression, some problems, better to minimize
We're already being kicked out of this room.
I don't know.
I'm having, yes, I would like to focus on 1.1 as well.
Okay, so I think the only other valid parallel track right now is getting the testing stuff going.
Yeah.
In a meaningful way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe Lynn described the invite for the bill testing release for the first meeting.
And by the way,
The resurrected one.
there was a topic here around repo organization, which maybe can discuss in the test and release.
Yes.
Right, because I think it makes more
definitely
sense
not
that
networking.
it's not so much networking
Well,
related.
everybody should be aware of it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for inviting me to it. I